Welcome to the Design Dash podcast, your guide to designing a life you love. Join us as we explore the keys to living the life you want without compromise.
Hi there. Welcome to the Design Dash podcast. I'm Laurie Umansky with my co-host, Melissa Grove. And today's guest is Laurie Laizure. I should have asked you, Laurie, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Man, I did great right out the box. Okay. Laurie's the founder of the interior design community. And I've been a member of Laurie's community via Facebook. It's also on Instagram for a while now. And I, as a business owner in the industry for, I hate to say how long, over 20 years. But there are some really interesting and compelling conversations happening in Laurie's community. And she is a true connector at heart. Laurie has spent the past decade building a space where designers can share, learn, and grow together. She's a self-proclaimed data nerd who brings a rare blend of heart and analytics to everything she does, from social media trends to curating global conversations about the design business. So she has a deep love of tech tools, which we do too, community building, thoughtful dialogue, and she's helped thousands of interior designers feel less alone in the challenges that we all face in the industry. So welcome to the Design Dash podcast, Laurie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Big fan of yours always. So this is fantastic.
And Laurie also has you have a podcast because I was just a guest. So if you want to, just before we dive in, if you want a continuation to that conversation, you can log in over on her podcast and check that out.
It was great.
So let's just kick off with interior design community and what it is. So the community's become a global hub for designers. So what do you think makes a digital community actually feel like a community, a real community?
I think it feels more like a real community because I would only compare it to what existed before, which was really just the association level of designers getting together at ASID or NKBA and having local chapters. And fundamentally, I think that those organizations are doing really good work, but there are some fundamental flaws. And one of the biggest being that it's very difficult to become really, truly vulnerable in your local area with people who might know the people you're complaining about. So you might want to talk about your contractor. You might really want to vent about a client, but in a room full of people who might live in that same area as well, you're less likely to share that information. So there was a lot of I want to say the feeling that a lot of designers told me they felt was that they couldn't really go deeper. It was a lot of kiss and lovely to see you, but the deeper, meaningful conversations, it felt very a gatekeep situation. Like no one wanted to share resources. No one wanted to really talk about the real problems, and people didn't feel like they could go there. And so I think one of the wonderful things about interior design community, and honestly, the internet in general, it wasn't just me. I think I just came at the right time and built something at the right time when people were getting online and starting to talk to each other. And it allowed this open feeling where it could be someone, across the country that's telling you, well, this is how I handled that situation. And this is what I said to the client. And this is how I really dealt with it. And sometimes it can be a little bit much, sometimes they're like, fire that client,
Right.
But I think that overall, the idea is that you're not alone, that you have some support system, you have people who understand what you're going through and that they are trying to support you the best way that they can. And honestly, the resources that all of you share, serious resources, I've seen we have a whole file where designers have sent in their contracts, and other designers who send one in can look at other people's, every other designer's contract. There's over, I think, 200 contracts in there.
Wow.
There's lots of we've shared onboarding information. We've shared, little tips and tricks and emails that you might want to send to a client, and conflict resolution, issues and things like that I think are really, we need to know, in that moment of how would you handle this very difficult situation? Because in design, there's a lot of those situations, unfortunately.
A lot of troubleshooting, a lot of problem solving. What would you say
Yeah.
are some of the biggest challenges that the community is facing right now?
Well, right now, I think that if we're talking huge, like global issues, and this is what we're finding out more and more as we do interior design community in the 10, 12 years we've been doing this, we're noticing a lot of the issues are global. So if you know how you handle clients, holding your rates, being able to make sure you're making a profitable business and making a living, those are issues that transcend location. I have designers in Africa, in Australia, in the Middle East facing the same problems the US market is facing. So there are some global issues. I think that it is a women-owned business, LGBTQ-owned business as a majority of the businesses in the market. And as a result, sometimes it is not given the credibility that it deserves as a role in the project management side of construction. And I think that as a result, designers are underpaid. Like we just said, I just recently polled the interior designers. We had over 1,000 designers, respond to the poll. And it was, what is your salary? And 52% said they make under $100,000 a year. And as you can imagine, for such a high stress job, and many of those were principal designers. So they're solo entrepreneurs, in some cases, like single moms feeding their families, trying to take care of everything. And that's a really big problem. I would love to see that number next year or in a few years, if I can work with the designers to pull them again and see that number drop dramatically. I'd love to see, I believe, it's acceptable to make under $100,000 a year if you are first few years in business designer. But if you have an extensive career and a lot of knowledge that you're bringing to the table, you should be making a living wage. Also, a big problem is that designers cannot typically sell their businesses at the end of their career. They cannot, there's no succession plan for a design business, as there are for many other parts of the construction field. So designers somehow are not able to sell their businesses, but the tile guy is, and the builder is, and the contractor is. And we want to make sure,
even. Yes.
the architect, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So why is it that the design businesses there is no succession plan for design businesses? Expanding the income, making sure the designers have proper insurances to decrease their liability risk, and to have health insurance, things that are really like just global problems.
So many things. I know.
I know.
And we deal with all of that. And so just to go back to, root cause. What is root cause here? Is it that, and I don't know that all of these issues are stemming from the same root, but you said it is primarily women and LGBTQ owned businesses in this industry.
Absolutely.
I have had my firm over 18 years. I literally had a client tell me last week, a potential client tell me that her husband thinks interior design is a scam and that I need to sell to him why my role is important. And at this point, I'm like, I'm so deep into this. I'm not selling shit to anybody. Like,
right.
No, why? Why should I have to do that? I'm sorry that your husband has some qualms about a woman-owned business if that's what the issue is.
Right.
But, how do we
I definitely think misogyny
perception?
is at play. I think that is a fundamental problem in the design industry. I think the other issue is people really don't know what a designer does. The average everyday person, I'm not talking of people in our industry, but I think that we need to do a better job as a collective explaining the process of design. We do a lot of showing the pretty picture and showing the result, but we don't do a lot of explaining what the process of design is and what goes into design. It's just like anything else that you see that is really, truly beautiful. Like you see a really beautiful ballet. You don't know the hard work that went in to make that ballerina be able to do all of those amazing things. And that's something that's similar to what's happening in the design industry, where so much is going on behind the scenes and so much goes unbilled. There are so many times where you're like, okay, the sofa that they picked out is no longer in stock. We're not going to be able to make that, or some sort of fabric is out of, discontinued. We need to make a change. And we don't want to rebuild the client for those kinds of issues. So we're just gonna eat that cost.
No, don't eat that
sometimes,
cost.
yeah, don't eat that cost. How about
Right.
no? Because honestly, the client, if you were not there, what would be happening? The
They
client
would
would
be
have to
paying
be
for
dealing
it.
with it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like they would be dealing with the issue. You're there to make sure you're dealing with the issue. But that doesn't mean that you have to always take the burden of the cost of anything that goes wrong and any issue that comes up. And I
I
think
like
that's
to say, like,
often
that piece is not in your home. That piece is in your client's home. You're
right.
not buying it for yourself.
No,
Why
no.
would you pay for it?
And that is another problem. We have polled designers, and overwhelmingly designers have literally paid for product in their client's home.
Yep, I've
Because-
done it. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so many parts of it that are important. So you've got the designer who has this real need to, like, for the photography to be next level so that they can level up and get better clients, right? So that's sort of this carrot that's standing over the project. And then on top of it, it's your art. And so you have a more emotional connection to it. And so when you know the client is making the wrong decision, they're not buying the really nice light fixture, they're buying a cheaper version, or they're not really buying the nice rug, or they're not buying the artwork that you want them to buy, sometimes the designer will just do it because they feel like it needs to be in the space. And I think that these are those small incremental problems that it's not just one thing. It's many little problems that are not great business decisions that we'd love to see designers change the process so that they are making stronger business decisions and feel good about it. That's the other part of it is I want you to feel good about saying no.
Yeah.
I want you to feel great about it because it's making sure that you have money at the end of the day for your own family and you have time for your own family. And that's really what we want to make sure designers are doing a better job, holding that line of what is okay and what is not okay to the client and recognizing these are the client's problems. You're there to manage that problem for them if that's what they want you to do, but you're not there to make sure the problem disappears. And sometimes they don't even know that there was a problem. I know designers that have fixed the issue, spent 15 hours behind closed doors, and the client didn't even know that happened. And so they don't even appreciate it on top of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you think designers can communicate that value? Because I see it all the time in our own design firm and other designers in our community. They're undervaluing themselves. They're underbilling.
Oh, absolutely.
They're keeping hours. They're thinking, well, I shouldn't have to charge for troubleshooting. It's just like, well, if you were selling high cost, drilling materials and you had some troubleshooting there, of course you would. Like, so I don't know how, and this may just be a problem without a solution, at least for right now, or maybe it's something that a community and just the knowledge about it can solve. But how can designers prove their value? Like, what are we missing out on?
I think it's communication. Honestly, I think that I think there's a inherent need to fix problems. I mean, designers tend to be perfectionists and we have to also play around with what will the market bear. So if we were truly honest with a client, we would be able to say, sometimes it's going to take me the equivalent of the price of the product to find the right product for your let's just say a dining room table. You want to get a light fixture that is the perfect light fixture that goes over the dining room table, the right size, the right shape. It's going to be the right price point. Sometimes it can take as many hours to find that light fixture as it costs for the light fixture itself. And when you're telling someone that something is going to be double, sometimes they're like, well, I don't care if it's the perfect light fixture.
Right.
I don't really care. Certainly don't care 10 hours worth, and that is where we're going to have to really start being truly honest with the client and also finding out what the market will bear really, truly. For some clients, they won't care. They want the perfect light fixture, but some clients will really care. Like, I don't care that it fits the perfect light fixture. And so we have to be more communicative about what their wants and needs are. Do they care more about the budget than the design being as perfect as it could be, and letting some of that go if it's because it's not our house,
Right?
It's their wants and needs that matter too,
Yes.
So it isn't, and but also having sales strategies that can teach them, and talking about it in the very beginning too, where you're really setting it up the whole process for success. I remember I interviewed a designer a long time. She's like, even little things like you're talking to a husband and wife, and one of them you're in this space, and one of them just goes and walks off and look at something, and you continue talking price with just one of them. That is the problem. That is the problem. That will set you up for failure when later on one person says, I didn't say that, or you didn't tell me that. And now you have an issue between the couple and yourself, So it's like identifying the decision maker, letting the couple either decide who that will be, or making sure both of them are on the same page and they are together. There's a lot of just missing sales strategy, I think, overall, and holding firm on the line of what that acceptable line might be for that designer too. And I think some of that is just basic sales strategy, basic
the things you don't learn in design school,
obviously,
but also the things that are like industry associations don't necessarily focus on. They're here to advocate for the profession, but I feel like they're really missing an opportunity to talk about business and talk about sales.
I think that I'm going to say they do. I've watched, the associations do panels sometimes on business, and the tricky thing is that sometimes the designers, we have to accept some responsibility here too, because I think that watching the designers too, and like I will see a association really go all out and create a perfect event, and then people won't show up. So they will have RSVP, but not show up, and not realize that different people have sponsored it. There's a lot of money exchanging hands, like a lot of time and effort for the organizers from that chapter to put that together. I mean, I've spoken at different chapter events, and I know how hard some of the chapters work to provide really good education.
That's a good point. It's chapter by chapter almost.
It is. It's chapter by chapter. And, if we want more of this kind of real conversation, sometimes it's like we have to make sure we're showing up and we're being there and we're being present and we're really trying to learn what it is we need to do to bring it up the next level. It's kind of, we all get in this bubble of we're busy, things happen, everything goes sideways
out there.
So
I have a question about I want to know your stance on billing for our services. There are a lot of different billing methods, and we talk about this a lot. And I definitely have a strong opinion.
Yeah.
I've tried them all. But where do you land on this? Where have your members seen the most success with billing for services? Not goods, but just services.
Just services. I would say that we have a real mix in the community. So we have some people really, really happy with flat fee, and they've worked out the numbers that work for them. And, they're not, and I think, I really think you have to investigate what works for you. I'm not someone who says this is the right way to do it. Yeah. I do think that designers who are very detail oriented, if that's your personality type and you can manage the process of hourly fee, I think that designers who do hourly fee make more money in the long run. But I think that you can come up with a comfortable flat fee number that does support your business. And I think that you can have some, the key would be that you have to really clearly define the scope and make sure that you're really, really have that drilled down. And anything that does go out of scope, you have an hourly fee for that, so that you're not at least getting scope creep to happen and you're doing a bunch of things you're not being paid for. But I also think there's a cost to doing that. I mean, there is, to track all of those hours is a cost. And if you are making really good money and you're seeing good profitability doing flat fee, and it's a relief to not have to think about it, then that you're weighing those options and doing what's right for you. And every designer is going to have to look at that and see what is right for them and how they are personally and how they can manage that. And for some designers, doing hourly would be the wrong decision because they are not super detail oriented and they're going to lose they're just going to lose hours because they're not going to be tracking it well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want the stress of having to track it. It's very difficult. Like just in one shopping trip, for instance, you might be out there to look for tile for one client and then find another tile for another client at the same time. Like, how do you bill for that? How do you
You break
segment
it
the
up.
hours?
You do your best and you break it up.
You do your best and you break it up, or you just say, this is the flat fee for this client and this is the flat fee for this client. And for some people, they just want the less stress. And I understand that. If it were me and I were doing business in the market today, I probably would be doing hourly. I think that would be, but I am that type. I am a data person. So I like looking at the numbers, and I would be measuring like which jobs are getting me the most profit. And I'd be looking at that, really drilling it down from my area. So,
I mean, to me though, that just says that's smart business. So should there, I don't know. I always want to push for like, this is what works for us. And I really want to push you to do it this way, because then you will be profitable. You will make more than a living wage. You'll be able to support your family and get health insurance and all of those things.
While I agree with you, I know designers who do flat fee that, it just really, they're the sole entrepreneur in their family. They're bringing in more than enough money that they're building an addition on their house. And so they're doing very well financially with flat fee, and they don't have to worry about it. And for them, they have little kids or whatever, it's where you are in life too, because some people, it's like, I couldn't handle the headache of that right now. Where am I in life?
People who can do flat fee, it seems so much simpler than hourly, especially after I just had an hour-long conversation with my accountant about billing. I'm like, flat fee just seems so appealing, but it just doesn't.
It does sometimes. And I think for some people it works for them because they're able to say, this is just it. And maybe their market bears that better too, depending on, maybe there is maybe not as much competition if they're in like the suburbs of Connecticut versus in New York City. I mean, they might have less competition and be able to stand by a high earning flat fee, and they have a particular style that, they're going to be getting business. I mean, I know designers we've interviewed who really love flat fee and they wouldn't change it. And then I have other designers, but I think it's definitely a personality type, and you have to decide which personality type you are. If you are an analytical thinker, if you're someone who really loves the numbers, then you're probably more suited to an hourly fee, versus if you're, really you don't like looking at the numbers. You really need to figure out what that healthy flat fee number is.
That makes it worth it for you.
Yeah.
So when you've interviewed, or when you polled the designers who have said, I make under $100,000 a year, do you have any indication and as to how they're billing? Are they hourly? Are they flat fee? Do you get that?
We're working on something that will eventually provide that for us. So for the last few years, I know I want to do a big state of the interior design industry poll.
Yes.
And so we've been polling designers for a long time, lots of different questions from our plan of doing this big state of the designer. So I can kind of have initial data from that to benchmark against the data that I'm going to eventually pull when I do this. And then I want to do it annually and try to work on the areas that we feel like we need to help designers improve for overall happiness and success, and maybe even segment some of them, because we will know the numbers. So I will know personally who in that group I could say, okay, that designer should be making more than that because I know their work, so how can I not just like globally help designers, but maybe even like target help some designers who I know should not be in the level that they're in. So if they're at even like 150,000, and I know they should be over 300 because of their area and their competitors.
You can benchmark it then against
I can benchmark it against their competitors that they won't know, but I can see.
Right. And you're like, what's possible for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure I push people in the right direction because it's so difficult. I think that, to be fair, I'm in this very weird position where designers share a lot of information with me, but you all don't get that same level of information with each other. And so And I understand that that's like a direct competitor sometimes, and I do know there are pockets of designers who are so amazing with each other. They're local and they really do like open the books for competitors and really great. I'm actually interviewing one of those designers later on today. Her name is Shelly Hudson. She's in the LA area. She has a group of design friends that are, I think there's about 12 or 15 of them. And they're not part of the association. They just started this on their own. They get together on a regular basis and they really, truly share everything,
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
all their profits, all their losses, everything they're going through. And I love it. I love seeing that. I think that is so like, however it is, you're getting the right information so that you're making smart business decisions. All the power to you. I
And I think
want people
that's
to do
very
that.
much what we're doing at Design Dash too. We want to be
Yeah,
extremely open.
you have to be. I mean, in
And
order to really
it
make
is
those decisions.
national. It's
Yeah,
national. There are designers everywhere, but it's also like there are a lot of people in the community that could be our direct competitor that are.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
and I'm fine with that. Like, get it, girl. Let's
yeah.
all build amazing businesses. I love it.
I do too. And I think that we're starting to get there. I think people are starting to think more strategically. And
Yeah,
I think
no
we're starting,
gatekeeping. Like, let's do it.
I feel like
yeah,
there's a
I think
lot of
it's
gate
opened the doors.
when I first started this industry, it was maybe 7 years ago, I felt like there was a lot of gatekeeping. You would go to a networking event, you would ask somebody about business, how are things going? And no one would ever say, well, you know what? I've had a bad season or, oh, I was terrible
Yeah.
the other day. It was always very much like what you were saying at the beginning. Kiss, kiss. Everything is great. It's fabulous. I'm having the
Oh my
best
God, I'm
time. I'm
so
like, oh,
busy.
You're so busy. Yeah. I can't even believe I'm here.
right. I couldn't hear that a lot.
I mean, and I think it starts with us being open about what's
Yeah,
really going on. And it's different for everyone, right? Like it depends on your region, it depends on how your projects are flowing, whether you're having a good year or not. Like we may
right,
have 2 years that are just like building that revenue is not great, but then that third year we're like going bonkers because we've been building up to it and it can be
right.
that our sales cycle and project cycles are that long.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
but I think
Yeah.
it's okay to be open about it. Like, man, our phone has just not been ringing. How about
I'm
you?
doing all the things, and maybe should I do something differently right now? And there's a lot of blame that we want to put on ourselves when sometimes it isn't us. I mean, it's the situation. But then there are global problems. Like you said, the person who wants their husband to be sold about interior design. Well, that's everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, and I think how much of that can we expect the associations to do? And how much of that should we be doing ourselves that make the value of design and explain what the value of design is to the consumer? It's very hard for each other, for us to know how much another designer is making because none of this is public. So like
Right.
on our websites, we do not share what our prices are. We do
No.
not have we don't treat our projects as case studies where we say, here is like basically the line items of things that were done. And this is what the cost was, which I think
No.
would be really beneficial overall to opening up what it is we do. I mean,
I agree.
it feels like a lot of it is behind closed doors, and how are they supposed to know what it is the designer does, or how is your other designer supposed to know? There are even graduating designers that just finished school that don't know. I have conversations with them who don't know that High Point exists,
Hmm.
who think their first job should be with like Restoration Hardware or
Right.
Williams Sonoma or something. And I'm like, no, like don't do that.
Yeah.
I would rather see them work at Home Depot where they'd get some space
That was
planning.
my first job out of undergrad. I worked at Home Depot Expo in the plumbing
I
department and
don't
I
think it's a
learned
bad
so
thing.
much.
I think it's a really you're going to learn there way more. You're not going to be a furniture salesperson. You're going to at least have some space planning.
Working knowledge of plumbing. To this
Yeah,
day, I can lay out a shower like nobody's business.
exactly. I mean, that is much more valuable for a designer. They're not told even that. I mean, how can they be expected? I see there are, the e-retailers that we all know and love,
Yeah.
which sometimes I'm not going to knock them because honestly, there are times when the client wants that. They want Restoration Hardware or a Wayfair
Yep.
sofa or
Plenty.
whatever that might
Yeah.
be. But a designer can't make a living with pro accounts from those accounts. I mean, they're only 10 to 15% off typically, and you're just not going to make money
No.
if you're living in that world. And so how do we teach designers that? I mean, I see those brands do brand trips where they bring a bunch of designers out and glamp with them. And I'm like, those poor designers don't even know they're on the wrong, like, it's nice they're
You're
taking
on the wrong
glamping.
trip, sister.
You're on the wrong trip. Exactly. Go to
I
hiking
think
yourself.
it sounds like, I mean, it all starts with education and communication for
Yeah.
the industry, as
Yeah.
even as students, and then all the way through associations offering that same level of education for the industry and the end user.
Right.
That's a
Right.
tall order.
It is. It is. But I don't think it's something that we can't work on together. I think it's something that it's very clear to me the designers that have the most success are the designers who have tried to crack this code and figured it out and care about those details. So
Yeah.
that's what you have to ask yourself too. Like, is this what I want? Do I want, and for some designers out there listening, I'm sure the answer today might not be yes.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. If
Like,
you
I
have
am focused
a
on
baby
my
in the way, if you have a baby and you have a 2-year-old, your answer might be like, I kind of want to do it, but I don't really want to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
I'm busy and I've been there. So I get it. Like, my kids came first too. And right now I'm empty nesting. So I'm all in. But there have been times in my life where I was like, no way, I've got like 5 different things I have to do today. And design work would not be one of them. So, that's the other part of it, is because it's so women centric. Women are the typical caregivers in their family too. So, and we ignore that part often in the world of design. We forget that so many of us are moms, and have to do everything a mom does too, which is like manage every holiday, manage every vacation, manage every school
Get these
project.
kids out for summer camp.
I know, right? I mean, like, ah.
No, it's a
And
lot.
yeah, it's a lot on your plate. And that is part on top of your full-time job. It's managing the house, what groceries need to be done, and what does the house look like, and how's laundry going to get done, and things like that we are all, we're all trying to do together. I mean, I don't know if you guys have read that book, it's called Fair Play, which is like the coolest thing that has happened, I think, in the last 5 years. Is I read the book, the Gen Zs are all over it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically about how I'm Gen X, so our generation and generations before us really adhered to like the traditional roles. And I know I did, despite the fact that my husband's very, he's like a feminist too. So he would absolutely jump in and help with anything that I needed him to help with. But I certainly had to ask if I wanted his help. Like, he didn't just like, okay, I'll take the kids to the doctor. I'd be like, I can't today. You have to take the kids to the doctor. So it's things like that younger couples right now are already trying to divvy up the household tasks and change the way we all live to make it a little bit more fair, that it's not default mom for everything.
Yeah.
And I think that will give people who have careers in all the careers, but specifically interior design, because it is so female centric, the ability to prioritize their job too.
Mm-hmm.
And that is hard to do when you're doing everything else on top of it.
Yeah. It's a massive mental load having to take care of your business and
huge.
Your home and your kids.
The mental load is the part that people forget about. Like, you think of just the tasks of like, there's Christmas, right? And but it's like that list of things that everybody needs to have.
I love my husband, but when the kids are opening those gifts underneath the tree, half of those are a surprise to him too. So
yeah, no, he has no idea.
Absolutely. I would say more than half.
Right.
I was giving him a little bit of credit, but yes, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say I'm Gen X also. My husband's very much a partner, but I don't know. I think it's a lot. It's a lot,
It
man.
is. It's that mental load part where it just doesn't occur to them sometimes. Like,
when there's a sleepover, the parents are calling me. They're not calling my husband, and so those tiny little things, like one sleepover is fine, but then it's 3 birthday parties in a month. on top
Right.
of my workload. And it just becomes
Yeah.
a lot. It's heavy.
Yeah. And it's that list of things that need to get done on top of everything else. And I think so it really so much depends on where we are in life and how we can give designers the tools. I think the reason we started the podcast, honestly, because so many of you guys are doing such a great job. I really didn't want to do a podcast. I had done early on when we first started interior design community, we used to do a video show. And so the video show, I knew the commitment that a podcast would be, and I knew how much time and effort it is to do all of this, which I commend you because it's a lot of work. I just didn't, I thought it was like the business of design stuff is really being handled, but it's all of this other stuff that is not. And that's kind of why we started. It was, and during COVID, we get a lot of DMs every day from interior designers for our questions of the day. We put out these questions every day that get answered by designers around the world. And a lot of people were talking about being burned out. And I know why. I mean, it's like you got those kids at home. Like they are not. I was in the same boat.
If
I
you
was
weren't burned out already, you are now.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, get out of your freaking room and do your work outside of your room. He got like it started out okay, and then just slowly he became more difficult to get. Like he would want to do his work on his laptop in his bed. Like, get out of your goddamn room.
We all do, buddy, but
Yeah, no, you're not doing that. Get dressed.
And so where do you feel like your community's going? Like you do a lot. And like you said, you're empty nester. So you are all in on this. So what's next?
I am.
Where are you going?
I think that systematically we want to identify problems and figure out global fixes for them. So I've thought a lot about like, do I want to do chapters? Because I've had a lot of designers ask if there could be local chapters, and I don't think I want to. I think that system is tricky. So I think that what we'd love to do is probably have not local, but committees that solve problems that are, so it could be like an onboarding committee, or it could be a sales process committee, or it could be issue specific, or getting design, insurances and things and contracts and things that we know are inherent problems in the interior design industry, and maybe putting a group of people who are across the world who are amazing at that one thing that would be able to help other designers get better at that one thing too.
So you've mentioned process quite a few times. And so we are very process oriented. Like you are speaking my language.
Yay.
Talk a little bit about that. Like, do you feel like there's a universal design process that we could all be maybe not like following to the T, but like guiding our work and our businesses? Do you believe in that?
I do. I think that, as you find, I think everyone is handling it very individually. So usually the process gets tightened up when there's a problem. You have a client, maybe it was the communication broke down or whatever happened. Anytime a client is mad at you, that is a time that you have to figure out, like, what did we do as part of that so that they got mad?
Yes.
Yeah. It could be them. Like, it's not always them, but it also could be like, how can we do better on our process so that they aren't mad, that we get that, we are fixing this so that they know about it, that there's consent at all times. Like the design client feels like they have consented to whatever it is we're trying to do. And I think there's a lot of gray area in design where they do not consent and they do not know. Like we talked about that lighting scenario earlier.
Right.
That's a really big part of designer thinks they know better. So they just do it and they bill for it without consent.
Yeah. Without saying like, hey, I'd like to spend 5 hours finding the perfect thing. This is what this is the implication of that on the project. Do you approve?
Right.
Right.
And sometimes we aren't really great at that consent part of it. And so I think that as we build better process and as we really explore what that could be, and I don't think it's going to be a one size fits all thing. I don't think that design typically can be. And I would have said like, yes, there's a strong way to bill, that you should do billing probably hourly. I think the data tells you that the hourly billers are making more money. for sure. I know that to be true.
I mean, I
But I
know it
think
from
that,
experience that
yeah,
that's
but
true.
I will say that, you talk to designers who don't have that bandwidth and they're perfectly happy making less, but making, a fair market value
It's
for
a
what it is
trade-off
they
for
do.
time and
Time versus, and
right.
so that makes
Stress.
sense to me. That, if you've got two small children, which I don't have anymore, and you don't want the headache of having to do that, so you figured out a fair, equitable, flat fee that you feel you're making great salary, then you should be perfectly happy. The
Right.
problem exists when you don't make enough money so that you're able to do the things you want to do. So do you have proper insurance for yourself and for your family? Do you have a 401k? We have also polled designers that they are under, they don't have the ability to retire often,
Yeah.
and they don't have the ability, like we said, to sell their business. So those are things that are real problems in our industry that need to be solved, and we need someone caring about what that is and what that looks like, so that we collectively are making better choices, so that we're making sure that we are. I talk to young designers all the time, and I've always tell them, get a 401k like immediately, because you need, it's those designers who always, and you can think back to like when you were starting out and you were
Right.
like, had a good year and you got $20,000 profit extra on top of paying for yourself, which was amazing. And you're thinking like, how do I spend that money? Maybe I'm going to do an ad. Maybe I'm going to redo my website.
Put it back
Maybe
into
I'm going to,
technology.
maybe I'm doing a show house. Maybe I'm going to get an ad in a magazine. Maybe I'm going to do something, whatever that profit looks like and what you decide to do with it. But often it's not, I want to invest, and I want to make sure I make an investment for my future, and that's tricky.
So it's not just the process that we need to focus on. It's also the full life cycle of your career and your firm.
Right.
From launch to hopefully exit, like sell
Exit
or
with an exit plan. Yeah.
whatever that looks like. And I mean, I've thought about that. What is my exit plan? I don't know. I
Right.
don't know.
Right.
Do I
It's
have a
hard.
sellable asset? I
Right.
don't know.
Well, usually you don't if you don't have a strong process and if you don't have a strong plan to exit. So
But
that
even
should be
so, who do
something.
you exit
Yeah,
to? Are you
you're
exiting
right.
to private equity? Are you exiting to a commercial firm? Like, who are you exiting to?
Right. Well, typically, the way I've seen it that it has been the most successful is a buyout from an employee. That is typically
Yep.
what seems to work the best in our industry right now. Is that the way it's going to be 10 years from now? I don't know. I mean, I am seeing private equity come put their foot in the door and buy up small businesses in
Especially during
collaborative industries to ours. So I don't think they're far away from approaching interior design businesses and big firms, certainly. So how do we
how do you
leverage
position yourself?
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that I think private equity is a great thing, but I mean, I would love to see designers walk away with profitability, period. However that happens, I would love to see designers have proper insurances, have proper goals, like make sure that they are investing in themselves. I don't want to see a designer always giving, making the bare minimum their whole career, and then the design business just fizzles out. To me, that's just sad.
And it doesn't have to be that way. And
It doesn't.
that's why
It
interior
doesn't.
design community is there. That's why we are
Yeah.
doing what we're doing at Design Dash. I believe on the same page.
I love that. I mean, the more of us that care about this, honestly, the better, because and I think that the designers who get it are really starting to pay attention, and it's going to benefit every designer to have this base knowledge that will help their career. And when we think about it, all of these little problems that we're trying to solve, it puts that new designer who's coming into the market right now in such a better position.
Yep.
Like they are not going to make the same mistakes that we made.
I mean, I think we leave it there. That's great. Melissa, do you have anything else before we
No, I
wrap
think
up?
that's great. I mean, I think that really just reinforces the importance of community. It's all about awareness. I mean, I'm not a designer, and so coming into this industry, I had being in the marketing world, so much knowledge, so much mentorship. There's basic standard practices, and there's none of that, I feel like, for interior designers. And so I feel like what you're doing, Lori, is you're building that with the community.
Trying. Trying to build some standards and trying to fix some of the global problems as much as we possibly can.
Well, thank you for doing that. It's obviously a
Thank
big
you.
need.
Liz. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been really great. And if anyone would like to join the community or if they just want to find you, where are they going?
So they're going on Instagram first and foremost. That's at Interior Design Community. We're easy to find. We do questions every day. We have interiordesigncommunity.com, and we have a small private Facebook group too. So find us by connecting with others just like you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Lori. Thank you for listening. Make sure to check out our next podcast, coming live next week on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. In the meantime, you can find us and more wonderful stories like these on designdash.com. And make sure to follow us at Design Dasher on Instagram and TikTok. Till next time.